You also might have heard about MongoDB in certain ways. This is a thing that's around, and I always heard about it. And yeah, what is it? And it turns out it's a database system that is quite important for AI to work. So I was curious what MongoDB actually does, and I talked to Richmond Alake. He is developer advocate at MongoDB, and he explained a lot about the three essentials of AI, which is compute, algorithm, and data. And this last thing, data, the important thing is how to access the data, and MongoDB helps. So welcome to another episode of the Beginner's Guide to AI. It's Dietmar from Argo Berlin at the microphone, and I can talk a lot, but let's just give the microphone to Richmond and see what he has to say about how to make data an essential part of your AI. Let's go.
Yeah, today we have Richmond Alake from MongoDB. And before I talk too much about him, you people know the drill. I give the microphone to him because he can say much more about himself. And actually, first of all, Richmond, welcome to the podcast. And my first question would be, why AI? What did bring you to AI?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And Ditmar, thank you for having me on this podcast. I'm hoping we have a very good conversation. I can speak to your audience about AI, agentic systems, and what we're seeing today. But more importantly, MongoDB's relevance in the current state of AI and in the future of AI. So, to answer your question, why AI? What brought me to AI? So, I thought in my career journey, it was a natural progression. So my undergrad was in software engineering. After my undergrad, I then became a software developer. I became a web developer, building websites, building mobile application. Then I got bored. So I thought to myself, what's a good challenge that where I can use my existing skills and build upon it. And AI was the next level, was the next logical choice. So I tried to teach myself AI. I wouldn't say AI. I tried to teach myself machine learning, but I realized how difficult it was at the time, and I scared myself into back to university. So I got a master's in computer vision, deep learning, and robotics. So I guess that's what we call AI today. So masters in AI. And yeah, that is really why AI. One, because it's a solid challenge. Two, it's going to be probably humanity last invention,
Last
and
year.
if we do it right. And it's relevant, very relevant.
Yeah, that's great. The last we'll come to the topic of the last invention later, but let's go really simple because yeah, I don't do software unfortunately, and but machine learning. I mean, this is like the machines learn like the brain, but how in detail does that work? Can you go a little bit deeper in that? And for this, you need special NVIDIA chips. Everybody talks about them, I guess.
Well, you need NVIDIA chips, but we didn't start at NVIDIA chips, right?
Yeah.
Machine learning as a field, or AI as a general conquest of for man, it's something that we've been doing since I guess as a field since the 50s, 1950s. And then GPU became very relevant to the conversation when in 2012, when I'm gonna butcher the surname, but I think Alex Kavashki and his peers released AlexNet, and they showed I'm sure I'm getting the name of the network of the name of the convolutional neural network properly. If I'm not, then we can correct him. I believe it's AlexNet, and it was a convolutional neural network that essentially that was trained using GPU, which means that the neural the parameters and the weights and biases, the information, the knowledge of this neural network was actually placed on GPUs instead of CPUs or whatever processing system was used at the time, because GPUs had the ability to compute and information and compute mathematical information in parallel, right? It made things a lot quicker. So it made the training of these systems a lot quicker, and then you can then do it at what at the time was scale. And by scale, I mean you can make this neural networks bigger. But I won't go too much into the weeds, but the long story short is GPU was one of the key things that was one of the key aspects of the journey of AI that really accelerated a lot of things that we're seeing today. And there's three commodities in AI: compute, model, and data. So GPU is in that compute, and when you solve for compute, you can actually move a lot quicker on that innovation journey.
Yeah. This is it makes sense. The more compute you have, and this is the race for data centers and stuff like that, and the other parts come behind. But that's actually directly a way to talk about MongoDB, because data is the next step. The compute is nice, but you have to do something with it, and you are actually the ones that provide the infrastructure for accessing data, as far as I with my half knowledge would say. Could you explain what you actually do?
Excellent. So data is very crucial. Again, one of the key commodities within AI that makes AI work. And you're absolutely correct. MongoDB is at the center of this. We've been at the center of this. MongoDB is very relevant. And MongoDB is a general purpose database that is feature rich. And what it does is it stores and retrieves data. It allows you to build an application that can store data and retrieve data. That's what MongoDB does. But there are different ways you can store data, and there are different ways you can retrieve data. We've seen that evolve over time. But the unique aspect of MongoDB has been and still is the way we structure and format data, then store it within our systems, is in a format that is different to what database we're initially thought of, right? Which is tables, relational model. MongoDB has the document data model, and not to go into the weeds of things, the TLDR is MongoDB stores data in the way that developers think, and that is something called JSON. Right? This is a JavaScript objects notation. It's a data structure that has a key value pair format, and this is common. You tell any developer JSON, they understand what that is, and even some non-developers understand what JSON is. And it doesn't matter what programming language, what application type they're using. JSON is the most common inter-exchange data format within the application landscape. But wait, we have AI. That has not changed. And one thing that we saw was this LLMs, large language models, actually had a natural affinity for understanding JSON, which means that not only does MongoDB actually allow developers to build application and store application in the way that they already think, but it applies, we also allow you to store information in the way that LLM already think as well. So it's just very natural, very natural where we are and where we're going.
That sounds like you build an AI, and that is like structured a little bit like the human brain. And coincidentally, MongoDB works like with the human brain, and then you can also the AI can also work with it. That's a really, really practical thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically what again. I'll go very a bit technical, but not too technical. One thing is this LLMs, they gave out a lot of responses, right? And we loved that when they first came up, but then we started to realize that we required structure in the outputs of this LLM because it allowed us to make what was very probabilistic become more deterministic, which means that we can actually steer these LLMs to produce outputs that are predictable. And the best way that we know how to do it for developers, for application developers, for architects of the future is through JSON. So now we have there are modes that are called JSON mode or maybe structured outputs, which puts this LLM in the state of providing outputs that are JSON formatted or in the JSON schema. And MongoDB stores that data perfectly.
I was always trying to figure out the connection because you have a LLM, and it's basically language output, but then you have kind of a switch and you can let it program or work statistically. And I think then this is this other mode that comes in. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. And then there's another thing is just so the structure of MongoDB supports that. The basic thing is what's so important about data then? Why do I need to store data?
Yeah, well, one thing is you can answer that question in any point in time and the answer would relatively remain the same. It doesn't matter if it was the big data era or maybe the computer vision era or this generative AI era. The question is, why do I need to store data? One, you need to store data to allow for things within your application, such as personalization, right? That's one thing that is very understandable to most people. When you use an application, you want to be able to feel that the application was built for you and is able to meet your needs. And the way that application developers have done that or have done that in the past is to be able to collect data on either the user or provide data relevant to the user, which requires you to store the data somewhere. Now, let's take that into the age of generative AI that we have now. There's a lot of data on the internet, but why do we need to store data? These LLMs can provide an output, but they need relevant data, domain-specific data that allows them and their output to be personalized to you. And that's where we come in. We give you we are the data layer where you can actually store that data, and we give you different methods of retrieval where you can bring the data to the LLM to create that personalized experience for your customers. And we store different type of data, unstructured and structured data. And one of the common type of data that is very popular today is something called vector data or vector embeddings, which is basically a data object of like a music or a numerical representation of a music or an image that is stored and used for things such as semantic search. MongoDB stores that as well. So that is why data. We can go into the details, but That's generically why data.
Yeah. So actually this vector database, I heard a lot about. This is the new thing, the new shiny toy, because it's better to store data like this. And you have things like retrieval augmented generation where you use those vector databases. Is it why is it better? Can you say that in simple words? Why is the vector? I mean, vector, might have had that in school, but it's like a long time ago.
Yeah, and and you hit the nail on the head, which is you've heard of vector a long time ago. Vector is nothing new, right? The way we use it, or the high fidelity of the vector data that are being generated might be new now. We can capture more information in this numerical representation of data objects. So a vector data for your listeners is, let's imagine I have an image. I can pass this image through what we call an embedding model, which is a machine learning model that has been trained to understand some of the patterns within any input. It could be image or text, and you have a multimodal embedding model, then provide a numerical output that captures the patterns or the features of this image. So with that numerical output, you can actually do something which is interesting. You can take a text, let's say the text, I am searching for I am searching for a red image, then pass that through the same embedding model, then do what we call vector search. And that embedding model, that embedding or vector data of the text, which will be your prompt, will, within this high dimensional space, be closely related in distance to an image or images of maybe something with an image of the color red. That is the whole premise of vector search and embedded. Now, it's not new. It's here before, but what's new is the way we're searching and the fidelity of the embedding model output. Vector databases is something that are emerging, right? We've seen some examples of vector databases and people are adopting this, but what we see is nothing has changed to the way we store and retrieve data, the general purpose of data, which means that MongoDB is even more relevant than ever, which means that we're not just subscribing to one way of storing data. We can store different types of data and provide you the needs and means to retrieve and store those data effectively, including vector data. So with some database, you get the ability to store just vector data. But with MongoDB, you have the general purpose database that is optimized for AI workloads, including the storage and retrieval of vector data. That is a massive information, but happy to deep dive wherever you want to.
No, that's great because actually I now get what it means, and so if I have a prompt and I want to get something, and I mean it might be a general output, but now I have like what you said with a red picture. I want to, I don't know, create a picture that is connected to my pictures that I have in my firm. And now it can retrieve all pictures that are similar because they are somehow red and generate something. And maybe I have a style for my firm. And then suddenly I have the style with those red pictures. And what I create now is not a general picture, but would be possible, but one that bases on my own stuff. And with the vectorization, the model can find it. Did I explain that correct?
Very good high level explanation of it. And then MongoDB is that database where you store that vector data and have the mechanisms to retrieve vector data efficiently. And we store other type of data because this is what a lot of people are starting to realize. You need different type of data to make AI work, not just vector data. So I talk to a lot of customers that are building the future. They're building an AI application, they're building an agentic system, and they start to realize that they don't just want to do vector search, but they want to do full text search, together with vector search to increase the accuracy, to make the output of the LLM more relevant to the user's query, and to make the entire system that they're building more reliable and scalable. So you don't just go out there looking for a vector database. You go looking for MongoDB, that is that general purpose database. So which you're building that a good AI application, you're building a very solid AI stack, and you have a trusted data layer that is relevant regardless of what new data types emerge.
Oh yeah. But you talked about the customers. I'm really interested in which areas. Is there certain areas where the people come from, or it's just different industries, everything, or do you have some where more people come now for developing AI?
Yeah, MongoDB is in a privileged position where we get to see a lot of the excitement that is happening in AI today. And that's because you need data and you need somewhere to store that data, regardless of what industry you're serving or what customers your application is building. So the short answer to that question is everyone is playing with AI in some sense, which means we get to work with people in the manufacturing industry, in the telecommunication industry, in the healthcare industry, and it really is a very privileged position, and they trust us to be that data layer and where they can build the future of their applications and their application or different application. So that's the straight answer to that question. It's everyone.
Crazy. And I read on the website every month there's 175,000 new developers starting with MongoDB, and this is like but this is just the new people. How many people work with MongoDB? Can one say something like that? How many?
I can't give you an exact number, but I can give you an understanding or perspective, which is MongoDB is one of the most popular databases today, right? There's a lot of people that are familiar with MongoDB. Most developers are. So that's the scale at which we are relevant and which we have an opportunity to help developers and businesses build this long-lasting applications within this AI era. So long story short, it's hard to put a number, but there are hundreds of thousands of developers that are aware of MongoDB, and there are thousands of businesses that trust MongoDB as that data layer for their applications.
Yeah, that's a good answer, because I knew MongoDB as a name. I didn't know the advantages, and you told me something about this. But yeah, this is a brand name that everybody knows somehow. You go a little bit into programming, and then you come there and see you people. It's actually it's a good branding. Huh?
It's good branding, but also the technology itself is very useful. And I'll tell you a personal experience of mine, which is when I was in university. I said earlier my degree was in software engineering, but I don't tell people this, but I hated coding because to build an application, you have to learn the front end, the back end, the database, and they were just different worlds. In fact, in the web application space back in the day, we used to have 3 different people, developers, building one application or more, at least 3, because you needed someone that knew HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. They needed someone that understood the backend. It could be Java or whatever backend language. They needed a database administrator that understood your database. But this is what MongoDB did for me. It unified the application stack, which means with the mindset of JSON, and thinking about JSON, it made it easy for me to just understand how things connect through the application stack, the front end, the back end to the data layer. And it was so significant that it changed my career. So I became a full stack web developer because I understood MongoDB. I embraced that JSON, that object-oriented programming mindset, that JSON mindset. and used it all across the stack. So we saw the emergence of full stack web developer. You probably have heard of different stacks like a mean stack, MERN stack. And those are things that MongoDB helped within the application space. But we're not stopping there, because that same thing we did for people like myself when I was a bit younger is what we are doing for the AI engineers, for the AI application developer today in the world of generative AI. It's the same aha moment.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that is something you didn't want to program. Actually, do you still program, or is it AI, or do you just manage your agents and they program?
Well, I wish I had a bunch of agents that were coding for me. That will allow me to do more podcasts and talk to you more. But yes, I still code on a daily basis. I'm in a unique position where I enjoy building things and having a very good understanding of what's going on in the application development landscape, and then communicating that information to developers, to our customers. We do that in MongoDB in different ways. We have an educational platform, we have a developer platform where you can see different articles, and we actually speak to our customers one-to-one and their specific AI team. So long story short, I code more than ever.
So it's not yet there. You said at the start, AI may be our last invention we make, and
Yeah.
so. But actually, well, can you go more for programming or in general, like your vision for that?
Yeah.
I'm curious
So
to hear that.
one thing is the promise of AI has always been to replicate human intelligence. The question is why, right? Why have we wanted to do this? And it's because we can get a bit philosophical here.
Great, yeah.
The, life can be laborious, which is you come in, you're born into life, you're expected to go into work, you work for several amount of years, then you retire at age 60 something, and then you get to enjoy the money. It's for lack of better word, that there is more to life than that. But we need a way, or we need some form of entity that can help us with this laborious part of life, that can then allow us to experience the creative part of life or aspects of life we've not seen. I think there is a future where AI allows us to be very productive. It allows us as humanity to explore different areas of the experience of what it means to be humans that we're not allowed, that we don't have the opportunity or the scope to explore today.
Wow. Yeah.
And it can be humans' last invention if we do it right, and also if we do it wrong. It goes both ways. But I'm not gonna bring the doomerism vibe. I think AI has a lot of benefit to what we do today as humans, and it can improve a lot of productivity for a lot of people within different domains.
I actually have a typical question here in the interview, and that would be, how probable do you think is a Terminator or Matrix scenario? So a little bit of doomerism I want to get from you.
How possible? I think there is always a potential for certain outcomes, right? It would not be intellectually honest to say that there isn't a certain percentage for that outcome happening. Does it happen exactly like Terminator? I doubt it. It might be less cinematic or dramatic. I think any technology in the hands of the wrong people can cause harms, and that's the same for AI. That's the same for the internet. That's the same for any technology we've ever invented.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's like, is this a probability? No, but it's a possibility. Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
That is good. Yeah. One thing about yourself, do you use ChatGPT, or for what courses, for what things do you use AI? Programming, obviously, probably, but do you have other things that are funny, interesting, or helpful?
So I use ChatGPT. Again, I need to have a very strong opinions of the things that are coming out of LLM. So I use ChatGPT, I use Claude, I use Gemini, I use pretty much the whole chat interface that are coming out. I use it for different things, right? For my side projects when I'm programming, I use it for thinking as well, for debating, for looking at other perspectives of some opinions. I use it for pretty much a good amount of what I do today. But something I'm realizing, Detmar, is there is an aspect of when I use this LLMs where I begin to over engineer the problem. Like I've never seen a computational entity or even an intelligent entity think about 2 plus 2 so deeply as much as an NLM will. But there are times where I see myself over engineering when I'm working with LLMs when the answer is actually quite simple, right? But yeah, to answer your question, I use it for a lot of things, and there's some things that I don't think I can use it for yet.
But it's really interesting this point where one gets tempted to ask everything for to the machine, even if it's simple like 2 plus 2. Use a calculator. But the people then are asking those questions, those huge machines. Great, yeah, this is a good thing. And what can come out of is paralysis through analysis. If you analyze too much, you don't do. I think that's a certain risk there.
Exactly. Yeah. It's over engineering, and that happens regardless of an LLM or without an LLM, which is one thing that a lot of people are going to realize is LLMs and the era of AI and the AI models, they amplify a lot of things, right? Productivity, but they can also amplify a lot of things that we don't want them to as well. So we have to use them with not with caution, but use them with having. I find that it's better for me to have an objective that I want to get when I'm working with LLMs, and then maybe time box myself because you could go into the rabbit hole.
Definitely those long chats. Yeah, great. Yeah, yeah. And then now starting with voice mode, and so you're even more tempted. Yeah, one has to control their own use. Yeah,
it does. And one thing is, one thing I use LLMs for this new interfaces, like you mentioned, voice mode, is I use it. I use it for learning different languages as well. So I'm learning a certain language at the moment in time. I have a human tutor, but at the same time, sometimes I go into ChatGPT, I put it in voice mode, and I say, speak in Japanese. Let's speak in Japanese now. And we go back and forth in Japanese very terribly on my part. Excellent on the ChatGPT part. And I use it as a tutor as well. But again, it's not replaced my human tutor.
I totally get that because for myself, the listeners may know I'm married to a Cuban wife, and so Spanish is a choice. I learn languages also with the voice mode, and it's really, yeah. This is something so interesting that you now suddenly can go there and talk in a language, and it helps you, and it understands your problems and can correct you. Really, really great. Japanese, oh yeah, but that's a harder. Spanish is quite easy compared, I think. Japanese
Oh,
is whoa. Yeah, okay. This yeah, long ago I did some kendo, like this fighting thing, and they had like terms, and I tried to remember them, and it was like not easy,
well,
but great. It's like, yeah, cool challenge.
I'm terrible now at my Japanese, and I'm just doing it as it's fun, right? And this is what I was talking about, the human experience. If we have more time to do certain things, what would you do, right? For me, I would learn some of the languages of cultures that I'm interested in. But I would love to do that full time. But we have this laborious aspect of work that then gives us the permission to do the things that we actually want to do. But I'm in a fortunate position where I made a conscious decision to go into AI because I wanted to do it, and I was good at it. I understood it. But now I want to learn Japanese as well.
Yes, it's actually, this is really like this philosophical thing is a good thing to end on, because what do you want to really want to do, and what should you do if there's no work anymore? Many people will have to think about they have to develop hobbies or passions and so
Yeah,
and
I think there is a future. There is a possible future where the word work disappears.
wow, yeah, great, yeah, I love it. I think we have to stop now because you can't top that, because this is really something. I mean, yeah, the work is done, and by machines, by thinking machines. They are great. Yeah, but
So
Richmond, tell us where we can find you. Where can we find MongoDB, and where can we find some information? We put everything in the show notes. And but
yeah,
Richmond, tell me,
yeah,
tell us.
we'll put everything in the show notes. You can find me on LinkedIn, right? Type up my name, Richmond Alake, and hopefully there isn't an imposter on LLM trying to impersonate me, but I will show up. And you can find me on LinkedIn, reach me on LinkedIn. But you can also see some of the good stuff I'm doing over in MongoDB. We'll put some link on the show notes, especially a piece that we use to explain AI stack and agentic system and AI agents. I'll put some articles that will help your listeners understand what's going on without going too much into the details. And yeah, so it's find me on LinkedIn, connect with me, reach out to me, and let's learn together.
Perfect. Perfect. So, Richmond, I really thank you for this, and I also thank you that you explain things not on a deep tech level where I was like blanking out here. I understood what you said, and was great having you.
Thank you very much, and look forward to speaking to you soon.
Yeah, we do that. Thank you.
Yeah, another thing I learned, JSON, I always heard that, but that is the language that makes it easy to access data. Okay, more I don't need to know, but now I know there's a thing that all programmers like, and that makes the communication between LLMs and data easier. Great for us. And it seems to be quite successful. 175,000 new developers each month. That's quite a number. Yeah, so I hope you, like me, learned a lot about neural networks today and machine learning, and had fun listening to Richmond. And the last thing, don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter, argo.berlin.com/newsletter. And also follow us on your podcast app. Would be happy to have you there, and in the next episode as well. So signing off, Dietmar from argo.berlin.